Hey everybody, Caleb here. Happy Halloween to all of our listeners. And I just wanted to let everybody know that for our subscribers on Patreon, Austin and I have put together a little something extra for you all for spooky season, in the form of some good old-fashioned punk rock music. So if you're a Patreon subscriber or you feel like subscribing on Patreon, that is live for download right now. Just go to ghostsinthemountains.com and click the link for our Patreon. So big thank you to everybody that subscribes on there. And if you feel like signing up, there will be more things like this to come. So thanks again and happy Halloween. And we hope that you enjoy what we've put together for you. All right, enjoy the episode.
Henry County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
I'm driving on 210. I just crossed the Black River, and I thought I saw a guy standing on the side of the road bleeding.
Okay, where are you at, sir?
The Appalachian Mountains are some of the oldest in the world, and we just happen to live in them. One thing we can tell you, there are ghosts in the mountains. Good evening, and welcome once again to another episode of Ghosts in the Mountains. I am your host, Caleb Hanks, and with me, as always, so happy to be here. He's dressed like a vampire right now because he was so excited about our very last episode of spooky season. Dr. Captain Count Austin Burgess. How are you, brother?
I am doing well. Happy Halloween. Just a few days away, right?
Yeah, exactly. Happy Halloween and happy hitching very soon for you.
Yes, very, very much soon.
Man, yeah, that's got to be nerve-wracking and exciting and awesome all at the same time.
Yeah, all in one. And it's just all wrapped into the spooky season.
There you go. Like a little pumpkin spice burrito.
There you go.
Well, thank you all for joining us this evening. Yes, as Austin mentioned, man, spooky season just flies by way too fast. But we're not going to let it go out without a big ol' kaboom here on Ghosts in the Mountains, because this one, well, I would say fell in our lap, but it actually fell in the back of somebody's truck.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And it brings us back to North Carolina. Not quite the mountains, but still takes place in the state. So
close enough. And, the more I looked into this one, I think we're going to be able to tie it into something that we did sort of cover before. But we are going to be talking about something that is probably the most topical episode we've ever done, because this one has been making the rounds recently. And hey, it's in our backyard. We kind of had to do it.
Yeah, for sure. I think I initially found out about this through a TikTok video that Adriana showed me that had been circulating. And I think we kind of shared it with each other over the past few days after finding it. And, I've been pretty fascinated and equally fascinated and creeped out by it, because it is one that once you hear the audio on it, it does just make your hair stand up. And it really leaves it very open-ended.
No doubt. We are going to be talking tonight on our last spooky season episode about what I am just going to be referring to as the Rake of North Carolina. That's probably the easiest way to put it, because that's what everybody's been calling it.
And that's what the official video that kind of broke the news on it has it listed as in the title. So yeah, that makes sense. We will go with that. But yeah, like you mentioned, I think this is a perfect way for us to conclude spooky season with something that is relevant, timely, and brings it back to the home state of North Carolina.
Yeah, so the first time I heard about this was actually you telling me about it when we were at the Hurricane Helene benefit down there at, what's the name?
Oh, at Fleetwood's. Yeah, I remember trying to talk over a band trying to tell you about this video, and you're like, oh, that sounds weird.
Yeah, I couldn't really hear you because the bands were very, very loud. But then, like the next day, I'm hanging out at the house, and I see the Carolina Case Files YouTube video that's talking all about this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I finally hear the audio. I have no recollection. I'm not putting anything together in my mind of what you were telling me about. And I start seeing this audio, and I'm like, well, this person seems realistically distraught about what's going on. So I shoot it your way, and you're like, yeah, this is what we were talking about. This is what I thought that was kind of funny.
For sure.
But this situation in general is not very funny. It's actually pretty incredible. And judging by a couple of different factors involving this 911 call that we have the recording of, if this is legit, the implications of this are insane.
Oh, very much so. And that's something I want to break everything down and then try to get into some of the legitimacy conversations, because I think those are good to have with a topic this sensational. You have to consider things like this, especially when it spread like wildfire over social media, like became completely viral over a matter of few weeks. Like the actual event took place in July of 2021.
Yeah.
And the initial story was published by Carolina Case Files in that YouTube video on September 13th, 2025. But like over those past few weeks after it was published, I just saw it blow up. And probably around like September 20th, right around the time of that show, is really when it was in peak social media viral form, I would say.
Yeah, and I did see that the Carolina Case Files essentially made like a follow-up video, kind of just debunking some of the things that people were saying on the internet about it being fake and all this.
Yeah, because, I mean, something like that, you're going to get people, whether they're professional debunkers or whatever that they spend their time doing, or just random skeptical listeners, it's natural to have some reactions like that. I think the first time Adriana showed it to me, I was probably like, the few first things run through my head is like, okay, is this a faked 911 call? Is this AI? There's just a few things that you could ramble off the top of your head. But when you dive into the backstory of it and you discover that, retired Navy veteran Rusty Martin is the one running Carolina Case Files.
Yeah.
He's a very credible person within himself. He's got a lot of journalistic integrity, and he pretty much goes full deep dive on showing where all his sources come from. And
yeah,
to me, I think it's makes it even creepier how credible the video is in itself.
I think there's a lot of creepiness to this, but hey, let's not make the people on YouTube angry, and let's get into this damn thing, brother.
Sounds good. So just to give you a little bit of a background here, in the recording we're about to play, you'll hear a young man. He's driving a pickup truck through Route 10, which is somewhere in the area of Currie, North Carolina, which is basically an area outside of Wilmington in Pender County, also not that far from Lumberton, as we discussed in our initial North Carolina UFO episode.
That was one thing I was going to bring up. It is 1 hour and 11 minutes from Lumberton.
Yeah, it's kind of on the way to Wilmington from Lumberton, which you could kind of draw your own lines there. Wilmington kind of seems to be its own high strangeness or UFO hotspot, if you will.
For sure. But if you guys aren't familiar with why we're bringing up Lumberton, North Carolina, in 1975, from April 3rd to April 9th, was one of the biggest North Carolina UFO flaps that we know outside of, I guess, like military detection off the coast and stuff like that. But it was a pretty big event, and we go into that on an episode called UFOs Over North Carolina with my brother Micah Hanks. So if you want to check that out, there's a little bit more information there.
And I think one of the more significant things there was that was kind of the start of the triangular craft sightings that started to happen really around that area. Or era, I should say.
Yeah.
But this takes place, not far from there, area Route 10 or 210, I should say, and it's near or somewhat near the historic Moores Creek battlefield area, just to kind of keep that in context. And the man driving who places this 911 call claims to have witnessed what he thought to be a man on the side of the road bleeding, and he was, thought this was concerning enough to call into 911 to report it. And once he does, man, things just get even crazier from there. So I think you just want to go ahead and play the call here, and we could dive into the details of what we're hearing after that.
Let's get into it. All right, everybody. Here is the actual 911 call recorded from dispatchers on 7/31/2021 in Pender County, North Carolina.
Pender County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
I'm driving on 210. I just crossed the Black River, and I thought I saw a guy standing on the side of the road bleeding.
Okay, where are you at, sir?
I'm on 210. I just crossed the Black River. I'm heading towards 53 East. I just passed Patriots Watch.
Okay, so you're over near Morse Creek?
Yes.
Okay. And did you saw a man standing on the side of the road?
Yes, ma'am, and it looked like he was bleeding because when I drove by, I had my high beams on, and all I could see was just some streaks of red going down his body, starting at his head.
Okay, hold on. I'm trying to get exactly where you're at. Okay.
I'm kind of in the middle of the woods at the moment.
Yes, sir. I'm familiar with the area.
What the?
What was that, sir?
That's not human! That's not human!
Sir, are you okay, sir?
There's something in the bed of my truck!
Okay, what's in the road?
No, it's not in the road, it's in my truck! In the bed!
There's something in the bed of your truck?
Yes, ma'am, I just turned on my bed lights for my truck and there's something in my bed.
Okay, so when you say something, what do you mean?
I just knocked it off of the bed of my truck and went over my roof.
Okay, what was it?
I don't know.
Like a turkey, a deer?
No.
Turkeys
I
are
don't know
pretty
what the hell
big.
that was. That wasn't a turkey because I was driving 50 miles an hour.
Okay.
The turkey doesn't hit that hard, and it was not covered in feathers at all.
Okay, all right, sir. What do you think it was?
I have no idea what the hell that was. And it just scared the absolute hell out of me, and I just knocked it off of my truck when I slammed on the brakes.
I'm sure you did, sir. I mean, I would be scared, too. I'm just trying to think is there any damage to your vehicle?
I don't know, but I'm waiting until I get further away.
Okay, sir.
All right. So,
Yeah. And just to say up front, give credit where credit's due. This audio does come from the Carolina Case Files episode that's titled Real 911 Audio Dispatch Call Log Reveals Class A Rake Encounter in North Carolina.
yeah, if you want to go check that out, they've got some pretty just exclusive information that comes out on that video.
They were the ones that pretty much broke the story initially. But kind of what caught my eye with the video title, especially, was the classification of the creature as a rake.
Yeah.
Which, similar to kind of what we discussed in some of the Vampires of Dillsborough episode, a rake is a creature that basically comes from creepypasta lore. Essentially born in fictionalized stories written to be posted on the internet. So that was pretty interesting to me. So just with the classification of that coming from internet lore, thought it might be appropriate to give you a little background and consult Monster Wiki for a little information on what a rake is. And according to monsterwiki.com, a rake is a creature believed to be humanoid in appearance with several references in folklore and horrific urban legends, originally appearing on the internet as a creepypasta. The creature reportedly attacks humans for unknown reasons and often causes its victims great psychological trauma. Several theories to its development point towards internet threads and online discussions. However, other people believe that alcoholic delusions fueled the idea of the creature before then, essentially kind of leading to its origins in some of these stories. The rake has also been tied to alternate figures such as the Slender Man, another kind of internet meme or another creepypasta character, if you will, and which is also claimed to be based on ancient folklore referencing an unnaturally tall and skinny, mysteriously looking man lurking in the woods. It's theorized that the rake could possibly be a proxy of the Slender Man, subject to its own self-mutilation and psychological disorders. And it goes on to say if you want to look for any images or footage of people that have allegedly captured video of the rake, you could search on YouTube for the rake caught on tape. And I think that's the most famous video where you kind of see this just skin creature crawling. And it's pretty terrifying, but for a creature that was essentially created on the internet, it is pretty weird when people start reporting seeing these things in real life.
Or at least associating what they're witnessing physically with something of the same description.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that influence or it's influenced by something in real life. But, I think my first exposure to the concept of a rake came from a video, I guess it was from 2006, I think maybe published on YouTube in 2008. And it's titled Alien Golem Monster. If you want to look it up, you could just search that on YouTube. But it features some night vision video of what essentially looks like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Not really sure if that video was a hoax or not. You could kind of leave it up for yourself to decide. But, that was a good chunk of time, almost 20 years ago. So I'm not sure how good some of the special effects were just for people to fake something like that easily at that time. But
yeah, I think 20 years ago there were a decent amount of sightings of that, because I think it was around then that the first time I remember seeing something like that was in the scene in Signs when they're watching the news.
Oh yeah, the video.
Yeah, because I feel like that kind of that design in that movie. Spoilers for a 20-year-old or how many ever year old movie. That sort of alien creature, it's kind of tall, it's kind of slender. I mean, it in my opinion, kind of looks like what, is described as a rake.
Yeah. Kind of the gray alien prototype fits what you would expect for these rake creatures too, which also kind of interesting to note, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
So this story here of the rake in North Carolina just adds to the list of the people that have claimed to see a creature that at least fits the description, if nothing else. So to jump back to that story, Rusty from Carolina Case Files had the opportunity to interview the witness that encountered this creature and made the 911 call to begin with, and we will refer to that person as T. So while still driving, he was going 55, 60 miles an hour. He places this call to Pender County 911 to report what he thought to be a man on the roadside bleeding. And some of those subsequent case files, some of the descriptions add that he was seen bleeding from his head, and T was clearly shaken up on the call, reported seeing red streaks on the torso, with the man just kind of staring at him as he passed by. So when he was questioned later by law enforcement and interviewed by Rusty, he claimed that he thought the man appeared to be wearing something similar to an old Civil War uniform, which pretty freaky in itself.
Yeah, this is kind of like, it's a total aside.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a total different story happens before the story.
Yeah, it's like, are these things related? Not too sure. It's not pretty unclear on that, but that's at least what gets him on edge and gets his attention.
I don't know what to make of the idea and the concept of portals, but when you do hear people talking about there being a portal, it damn near sounds like something opened up and all this weirdness happened down there.
Yeah, and now I do want to mention the Moores Creek National Battlefield area right down the road. This battlefield was actually part of the Revolutionary War, not the Civil War, but I still think it's kind of an interesting detail with it being so close there. And who knows, maybe it's hard if you're going that fast, you see someone bleeding, you might just associate old war garments as opposed to specific Civil War. Who knows?
Yeah.
But the video that we referenced from Carolina Case Files also included an interview with Pender County Sheriff Alan Cutler, who claimed that they've also had quite a bit of strange and unexplained activity reported coming from that battlefield. He said they've sent deputies out there to investigate unexplained sounds, some people seeing things that they just really don't understand what's going on. And he said that it's pretty much falls short of being categorized as some paranormal occurrences that they've had to look into out at the battlefield already.
Well, a lot of people that have particular schools of thought about paranormal things in general look at things like graveyards just being, portals or things like that. Do I necessarily believe that that's what's going on? I don't know. But there are a lot of people out there that do kind of equate mass graves and or places where massacres happen or battles in the war as those being very heightened paranormal places. So there is that. Yeah,
it almost goes back to that whole stone tape theory thing. The area absorbs emotionally heavy experiences that have happened there.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, jumping back to what you said about portals too, it does almost seem like this window area for high strangeness when you have something that maybe could be attributed to a old war ghost figure, and then within minutes you have what could be classified as a rake, a non-human entity. I don't know.
Yeah.
But as something completely separate encounter. Are they related? I don't know, but it seems pretty odd coincidence to have them line up back to back like that.
No doubt.
Yeah, so pretty weird start to that. And then, later as you hear in that video, the dispatcher kind of continues to talk to the driver, and then you just hear this audible thump. Like it's loud enough for you to hear on the other end of the recording, and you kind of hear the driver just like, what the and then just like yell like something's in the bed of my truck, and then you just hear him start screaming the like, it's not human, that's not human.
Yeah.
And that's when the hair on my arm stood up whenever I heard that.
Yeah, there was an article that we were reading this week, and it interpreted it as saying, it's not human, it's not human. I always thought on the recording it sounded like he was saying that's
not human. I think
That's what
that
I
is.
heard.
Yeah, that's not human is pretty freaky of a thing to hear shouted. So.
Yeah, it ain't something that you say every day.
Yeah, for sure. And it kind of like brings back to that whole thing of not knowing how to classify this creature that has just jumped in your car other than that is not a human.
Yeah, and the call goes on quite a bit longer than what we played just then, and Carolina Case Files has a really interesting part where they play the whole rest of that audio, and I'll just throw in, just to note, the dispatcher essentially starts asking him like, well, is it like a turkey?
He's like, no, there's no feathers on this
He's
thing.
like, this is not a turkey. And look, turkeys are weird looking. There's no doubt. But I think
you would know.
Also, if the turkey was big enough, and I mean, turkeys get pretty big, but that's a pretty loud thump in the back of the truck there for that to be a turkey.
Yeah. I do think, I won't say humorous, but it's almost just like odd how like panicked the witnesses and the dispatcher's just like, all right, what was it, a turkey?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's super funny. Yeah. I thought that was hilarious. I also like the first thing that she goes to is, it's a turkey, bro.
And then it's just like, he is just like, it's in my truck. It's in your what now?
Is it a butterball?
Yeah. So dispatcher's just kind of continuing to ask him for information, and you could tell he's probably just fed up, and he's just like, hey, don't worry about it. I just slammed my brakes. This thing just flew over the hood of my truck.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, the kind of full 911 call goes into detail of him saying like, hey, I'll stop down the road here when I get to a gas station, and agreed to basically sit there and wait for the police force, for Fish and Wildlife, for any other law enforcement officials to come out and meet him so he could give them the full details. And I think he's pretty curious on what the hell he just experienced too. So he's probably waiting around hoping that there's some normal, non-insane answer to what he just experienced, and maybe give him some closure to help him sleep at night.
Oh man, yeah.
So as he mentioned, he kind of took off down the road, and dispatcher's kind of trying to just coax him through on like, well, what do you think it could have been? And he just says like, I don't know. It was pale. It was light colored. And then he's just like, I'm too freaked out to stop at this point till I get to this basically gas station area.
Yeah. When it comes to his description of what this thing looked like, did he not say that he thought it looked like a very pale human that had been stretched out?
I think he gives that description later, and that might be in his interview with Rusty that he later kind of gives those full descriptions.
Right.
But when he's on the phone with the dispatcher, he's just like in the moment, very much like, I don't know, it was pale, it wasn't human.
Yeah.
And it was looking, that he does give that description. I think he said it was up against the glass window looking in the bed of his truck. Mm-hmm. And that's probably when he freaked the hell out.
Yeah, and I think he also mentions like sunken in eyes.
Yeah, sunken in eyes is mentioned in there.
Which is also noteworthy when you're talking about the possibility of, well, a frickin' alien.
Yeah, very much. Officers do eventually come and meet him at this little gas station area, and he takes them back, drives through, points out, this is where I saw the man bleeding, and this is where that thing jumped in my truck. But they couldn't find evidence of anything. But it was noted in the dispatch files that the truck did have scratch marks all over the roof.
I think he subsequently sold the truck.
Yeah, correct.
Which is kind of unfortunate.
I mean, you have a traumatizing experience. I'm just going to go ahead and say this. T that experienced any of this, I don't think this dude has any interest in the paranormal, in getting any sort of media fame from any of this.
No.
He had a traumatic experience, and he doesn't care about documenting it. He wants to move on with his life, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he talks to the guys from Carolina Case Files, but he does not show his face on camera.
Yep.
And I think that is another side of it that lends some credibility to it. One thing I will just throw out there, I don't think it's impossible that there was some sort of animal encounter involved in this. Judging by his reaction to it, I find that less likely. But you know how when everybody talks about a chupacabra is just like a dog with mange?
Yeah. So you kind of see the skin predominant creature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The thing that I want to point out there is that if you did have a larger canine or something like that did have mange or something like that going on that jumped into the back of the truck, in hindsight, you feel this big thing hit the back of your truck. It could look very strange. And I don't know. I think most of the time people would be able to recognize that is a dog or some sort of canine-like creature. He doesn't describe it as any kind of canine creature. So therefore, I want to give this person the benefit of the doubt and, try as hard as I possibly can to believe what they're saying. But I don't think it is impossible that there could have been some kind of animal. I'm not saying a dog. I'm just saying some kind of animal that looked very strange, had some sort of, weird medical thing going on. I don't know. I don't think it's impossible, but by his description, I will say I think it's less probable.
Yeah, especially when you get into the sunken in eyes, the skin stretched over a skull is how he kind of describes it. And then some of the more interesting parts come when he starts to describe to Rusty getting the thing out of the truck in the first place. Because, that's kind of a gray area on the call because it's just kind of like the dispatcher talking and then all of a sudden he's like, okay, I got it out. He goes back in his interview with Rusty and talks about he estimated he started going up to like 80 miles an hour and then just like slammed on his brakes, slowed down to 35, 30 miles an hour. And whatever it was just goes flying out of the back of his truck, flips over the top and just lands on the road. And after it was ejected from the truck, he said he saw it stand up on two legs in the road. And he said it was excessively thin and scrawny body that looked like a human, but stretched out.
Yeah.
Like literally stretched out, like all its appendages, limbs, everything is just stretched, almost like a Stretch Armstrong doll is how I would imagine that. And he said it stood about 7 feet tall, and he was kind of measuring this based off the height of his truck. He said his truck was about 6 feet, and the thing was at least a foot taller, stood a foot taller than what his truck was.
That's why I'm saying it's not impossible that it could have been some kind of animal. Sure as hell doesn't sound like it.
Yeah. So he says this thing just kind of stretches out with these abnormally long legs and arms, briefly looks at him, and just takes off into the woods.
Man.
So
can't even imagine seeing that.
Yeah. In that interview, I think Rusty was in the interview with Rusty, T was quoted as saying, "I still refuse to drive through that area at night because I don't know what I saw. I don't ever want to see it again."
Man.
Which I think adds credence to what we were talking about before. Like this dude isn't in it for the story. He doesn't even want to be associated with this. He's going by an alias, a letter for that matter.
Yeah.
So
if he was trying to go on USA Today, it'd be a different thing.
Yeah, 100%. So as I mentioned, the Pender County Sheriff Alan Cutler was also interviewed in that episode for Carolina Case Files, which just confirms that the 911 call audio is legitimate. And in his interview, he claims that it was very hard for him to listen to the 911 call without becoming just somewhat unnerved, stating it actually bothered me the first time that I heard it. And this is the sheriff of Pender County. This isn't just someone working at the dispatch office. This guy's seen some shit through his days, I'm sure. And this call is one that legitimately gave him some pause.
Oh, I mean, dude, when you listen to it, I mean, my first inclination when I listen to a lot of things like this, I'm like, okay, TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. Because of the platform, you almost have to view it with a grain of salt.
Right. But I mean, as soon as I heard that dispatch call, I was like, dude, this isn't your everyday, TikTok BS.
Yeah, for sure. And then just adding more credence to it is when Rusty goes and interviews the sheriff who's talking through like, yep, that's one of the most disturbing 911 calls we ever had. And it just, I think that adds to it. A lot of the people that were skeptical, like me, maybe thought that was a falsified 911 call, maybe thought that there was, maybe not even someone working at the police station under that name. All of that was quickly proven to be correct. So it was like I said, I think Rusty really did do diligence on telling what is a truly terrifying story, but through as much credibility as he could.
Well, and another thing that you brought up to me when we first started talking about this was calling a police station and pranking them is a felony, is it not?
Yeah, in North Carolina, you could be charged with a felony for falsifying a 911 report.
So
like
one's motivation to do that, whether they knew that would be a felony or not, seems rather low.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have some cojones there to really do that in the first place, and then just seeing that he wasn't trying to get anything. There was nothing to be gained out of this.
And making it sound that convincing if you were acting and making something up. I mean, the guy sounds legitimately terrified.
Yeah. And then, Sheriff Cutler kind of goes on to conclude in that video. He says, I don't know what he saw or what he experienced that night, but it was obvious that he was distraught on the 911 call. I'm afraid it's probably just one of those things in this world that we may not ever know the answer to. And man, unfortunately, you kind of have to agree with him on something like this. Like, what threads do you have left to follow in this regard?
I guess we just wait around for the invasion.
That's one way to put it.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is, okay, we kind of tied this to the Lumberton UAP flap. And just because it is so close in proximity. Mm-hmm. That said, that was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Like exactly 50 years ago, basically back in April this year it would have been. What's the implication there? That aliens landed in 50 years ago and have been somehow running around the coastal plains of North Carolina, and then one's just still hanging out, 50-year-old alien.
Well, that guy just got abandoned somewhere in the woods between Lumberton and Wilmington, and he's just found a home.
I guess so.
That's the implication.
Or I don't know. Do they live in underground bases like a lot of people think they do?
Might have to talk to Commander X about that one.
Oh, there we go.
But I kind of followed that same thought line that you were talking about there. Like, where is that common thread and connection? So I kind of started looking around to see if this really was the first time this story was actually told. Like that's a pretty big one to keep, under wraps as local lore, urban legend, whatever you want to call it. But I actually did find one Facebook post from December 19th, 2024. So not too terribly long ago, but still predates the Carolina Case Files episode. And it included a screenshot of a text message telling what had kind of seemingly become, like I mentioned, local lore at this point. And the text message reads, so the guy was driving home down 210, said he was going about 55 or 60 when he felt something heavy land in the bed of his truck. He turned the cargo lamp on and looked in his rearview mirror and saw a tall, white, pale humanoid figure with big black eyes looking back at him through the back glass. He took off trying to throw it out of the bed of the truck and called 911. He ended up having to slam on the brakes to throw it over the cab. We thought he was crazy, but there were 2 heel-shaped holes knocked in the bed liner and 6 marks across the roof of his truck that looked like scratch marks.
Man.
So this story was already a little bit brewing. People had probably heard about it. Like we said, I don't think T was out there trying to make him, a local legend off this. But dude, when something like that happens to you, you're going to tell your friends about that. And it's probably going to, telephone effect its way around town a little bit there.
No doubt about it.
And this exactly is what it seems like. Someone had maybe got a screenshot of some text when one of his friends was asking about it that kind of gave a, pretty vague SparkNotes description of it. But again, this predates everything that got released in that video. So it shows that this story was at least somewhat locally aware. And, I think it even adds more credence to this wasn't just something that the Carolina Case Files people completely invented or something like that. This was somewhat local lore at that point.
Yeah, the other thing that keeps like flashing in my head is like, okay, this person was driving between 50 and 60 miles an hour. I don't think it's impossible, but when was the last time you ever heard of an animal or anything jumping into the back of somebody's truck when they're moving at a speed that fast? I've never heard of it.
Yeah, that would take some precision. I've heard of animals jumping in front of cars moving that fast, sure. But and you got to assume, like you mentioned, the pickup was, stood about 6 foot high. So that's got to be some good leap and some good precision to get in a fast moving vehicle like that.
Here's a weird ass idea. Can we see if anybody had a permit to own a kangaroo down there?
I mean, I guess you could look into it. Kangaroo with mange.
I don't think it's a kangaroo, but
Yeah,
kangaroo are mostly bipedal.
true. I don't know about 7 foot, but it could be a very, very tall kangaroo.
I mean, how tall does a kangaroo get when it's all stretched out?
Yeah, that's, I
don't
mean,
know.
yeah, because they kind of like buck themselves up
Yeah.
to make themselves bigger. So who knows? That's an interesting.
Well, the only
line
reason I
of
bring it
thinking.
up is because there were weird animal sightings around where we live.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then you said that this guy over here, and I think in Marshall, had a damn kangaroo farm.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I were driving through the mountains or anywhere in North Carolina and saw a kangaroo, I'd be like, well, that's not human.
Valid. Fair enough.
All right, I'm going to stop with this, but I'm just throwing out ideas.
No, I mean, I think that's good to consider for sure. I think where my mind would go with that is when they retrace the steps. Man, I'm not trying to be morbid. If that thing was a kangaroo and you flung that thing outside your car, you think there'd be some sort of blood stain on the road of some kind.
Yeah.
But they said claimed to find nothing in that area, which
That's
is pretty
weird.
Pretty weird.
Yeah, it's a bummer the truck wasn't around to scrape for DNA.
Yeah, right. Some of the comments on that Facebook post are pretty interesting too, because back at the time it was not quite as widespread as it's taken off, so it's more like the locals commenting. And one comment I thought was pretty funny. It says, "If the creature was truly a skinwalker, I'm more certain that the government is trying its hardest to keep the evidence and pictures off the media. They can't directly keep whoever from reporting what they've seen, but as long as they could keep evidence from the people our reach, it will be harder for us to believe because there's so many people who will need to see the proof first."
All right.
Which goes a little deep into the. They skip a few steps along the way here. So.
That's a deep dish pizza right there.
And I thought this next one pretty much just chalks it up to kind of how I feel. I live here in North Carolina. I could definitely say that North Carolina is a hot spot for the paranormal and even UFOs. So I think I like that interpretation more than the government trying to conceal.
Well, here's something weird. Okay, we're talking about a rake, therefore, the idea of any sort of, potential alien and or humanoid. Doors open while we're talking about this stuff. Famed, UFO researcher Jacques Vallée, he acknowledges that there are a ton of people that talk about these dogmen creatures.
You want to know something funny?
What?
The Carolina Case Files episode 2 that they did was on the dogman encounter.
Well, there you go.
So
who knows? It might be something similar.
Yeah, I mean, well, you talk about the dogman and jumping back to, they just used the word skinwalker, but jumping back to our Skinwalker Ranch episode with the humanoid figures with dog heads smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much a dogman entity in my book.
Yeah, I've always thought of the skinwalker phenomenon as being almost one and the same with dogman sightings.
Yeah, which, I mean, there's some references that allude to this potentially being the answer to that as well.
Right. And just for the record, Austin and I talk about any of this stuff. Are we bought and sold on any of these ideas? Absolutely not. But hey, while the door's open, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. So along that line, all this is pretty crazy and also pretty compelling. I kind of wanted to see if I could find any other things in the area being reported outside of what we talked about with the Lumberton experience, because if there was something like this, you would think that's a pretty odd coincidence for it to be such an isolated incident for something like that to happen.
No shit.
So I started looking around and I did find one Reddit post from a couple years ago that linked to a post on a website called Phantoms and Monsters. And it had a story describing a tall, pale, crawler humanoid that was encountered at a residence in Durham, North Carolina, just about 2 years ago, which, yeah, if you're not super familiar with geography, Durham's still probably about 2.5 hours from that area, I'd say. So,
yeah,
you're going farther out west towards our way, but still, you're not an extremely far distance from that eastern North Carolina region that all this takes place in.
Especially not if you are an optionally quadrupedal crawler.
Yeah, right? Seems like that thing can move pretty quick if it just bound up into the woods again.
Yeah, no doubt. And could jump in the back of a 60-mile-an-hour truck.
On precision, yeah. So I did look more into this Phantom and Monster site. It's actually ran by a Fortean researcher named Lon Strickler. Not sure if that's someone that you've come across before.
Doesn't really ring a bell.
Didn't ring a bell for me either, but the website is described as an exploration of true cryptid encounters, unexplained scary experiences, and real eyewitness reports. So it kind of seems like a place where if you run into some weird cryptid encounter, you could write into Lon to kind of share your experience and at least kind of get it documented on a somewhat credible source for stuff like that.
Nice.
So as I'm kind of reading through, found another story recently published on there from September 25th of this year that really caught my attention just off the title. And that was Driver Hits Bizarre Creature on Highway 210 near Black River in North Carolina.
So
if you haven't been paying attention, the exact area that this rake encounter happened.
what year did that happen?
So let me get into this now.
All right.
So I'll just read the full entry on what this was reported as, and keep in mind this was September 25th of this year. So really right around the time that the rake story from this area was really coming into popularity. And it starts off, in the pre-dawn hours of a routine commute, a North Carolina driver struck something that defied explanation. An arched back creature, larger than any dog, staring him down before vanishing without a trace. Was it an unknown cryptid haunting the Black River woods, or did he collide with something not of this world? And the quote start off, it was back in 2021. Interesting. I was working in Red Springs, and my routine was like clockwork. Up before sun, out the door by 3:45 a.m. sharp. I lived in Rocky Point, and my drive took me along Highway 210. It was always quiet, pitch black, and that early morning, it just seemed especially off, since it was kind of during the hours of daylight savings time, seemed especially dark. I'd gotten used to the silence and the stillness of those dark wooded back roads. Nothing ever really startled me until that morning. I just passed the Black River and was driving through a thickly wooded area, probably about 20 miles past it. That's when I saw something on the road up ahead. At first, I thought it was just a raccoon. No big deal. But as I got closer, I realized this wasn't a raccoon. It wasn't like anything I'd ever seen before. The creature started crossing the road, and as I approached it, it didn't scurry off like most animals. Instead, it stopped in the road in the middle of the lane and stared straight at me. It had an arched back, almost like a cat ready to pounce, but sharper and more unnatural. It walked on all fours, but the way it moved sent a chill down my spine. It was bigger than any dog had ever seen, but it didn't look like a dog at all. I didn't have time to react or room to swerve. I hit it dead on. The impact was like nothing I'd ever felt. I felt as though my car was thrown. My Honda Civic started losing power immediately. The dashboard lights flickered, and for a moment, I thought the engine was going to cut off right there in the middle of nowhere. But somehow, the car continued to move. I made it to work, but all day I couldn't stop thinking about what I had hit. After my shift, I drove back to the exact spot I remembered, but there was nothing. No body, no blood, not even a skid mark. It was as if nothing had ever happened. I never talked about it until now. Honestly, I didn't think anyone would believe me, but to this day, I still don't know what I saw that night. All I know is that I hit something, and it wasn't from around here. Now, as you could tell, this is not the same story reported in Carolina Case Files.
No.
And as I mentioned, it was published, right after their video kind of really started to take off on social media. So I could look at this one of two ways. One, it could completely corroborate that something weird was in fact going on in that area, in that stretch of woods of highway in 2021. Maybe its own flap of something. But it does kind of seem odd that the witness also waited this long, 4 years, to tell his story. But, maybe with the recently published Carolina Case File story, it might have given him courage to come forward with it. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or trying to capitalize on the popularity of the Rake story reported in that area, someone created their own story with similar searchable details for SEO, like Highway 210, Black River, creature, and submitted it over to a lawn at Phantoms and Monsters, essentially making it a creepypasta in itself. Who knows? I'll let you be the judge on that one.
I've got my own theory.
What's your own theory?
This latest story that you told is completely true, and this alien is like a total freak that likes to get hit by cars.
Yeah.
He just stands out in the road like, come on, baby, hit me. It's the only way I get my thrills.
And this all happened in 2021, and then he just moved on to a new area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got hit by a couple of cars down there, and now he went on to some other busy highways and some back roads.
Yeah. So I'll let the listeners be their own judge on that one. You have 3 options to choose from, and maybe you have some more. Write us in with your own theories.
I don't know what's weirder, being a rake or a rake with a weird car hitting fetish.
So to jump back to our main story here, it's actually had its credibility called into question a few times in itself, which, we kind of mentioned is understandable for such a sensational story. But I've seen kind of a few articles on either side of this argument that have been published. The popular fact-checking website, Snopes.com,
Okay.
actually did their own write-up on this, and they deemed this story as true, stating that while Snopes could confirm that the call was real, we could not confirm what it was that the man saw during the call. The call does not confirm or refute that the caller experienced something supernatural, which many of the videos on social media have suggested.
Right. So they're just essentially saying real as in it's a real call.
It's a real video. They kind of go in, they do a little bit of debunking, or not debunking, but it's kind of like deep diving onto some of this stuff. They say that in the command log that was shared to Snopes by Pender County Sheriff's Office, the caller was recorded as telling first responders that he believes he saw a skinwalker or something like it. And as we know, skinwalkers are figures from Navajo tradition, kind of believed to have been these evil, dangerous witches that were capable of shapeshifting into animals. Another copy of the deputy's log notes claim that it appeared in the Carolina Case Files video as well, but they just said that the scratches found on the truck were consistent with tree branches, and they consulted an iNaturalist database of animals in the area of Pender County, but they did not include any large, featherless, pale creatures. And we need to look into the kangaroo files in that area as well.
The turkey files are off the table.
Later Rusty told Snopes that he had no idea what the caller saw or experienced, but that he believed the caller was truly convinced that what he saw was something terribly frightening. So, as Snopes is kind of just alluding to, that they believe that whatever this was not intended to be set up as a hoax. This was a genuine 911 call that was reported with no ill intent, essentially.
Yeah. I think one of the big reasons why I have a hard time believing that this was some kind of animal is because, outside of a human, how many tall animals can you even think of that don't have a long snout?
Right. Yeah.
It's so easy. Even a bear with like a short snout, it's pretty easy to look at and be like, that's a bear.
Yeah. And you would not describe anything close to being a skull with just flesh stretched over it.
Yeah.
So,
unless it was something that was like severely injured and somehow lived.
Yeah.
But that's pretty unlikely.
Yeah. But there are still skeptics out there on this wanting to publish their own opinions. So on the other hand, you have Stephen Johnson over at the What People Are Getting Wrong This Week section on lifehacker.com.
All right.
Yeah. And he writes that if the 911 caller had been reporting something else on the call, like a wounded deer in the highway or something, we wouldn't question whether it actually happened. The recording and the police report would just be overkill at that point. We believe the guy just because he said it happened. But I'm still 99.99 sure this guy either mistook something mundane for a monster or made it up entirely. According to the 911 caller, the thing in the back of his pickup truck had shallow sunken eyes and no nose, like someone had taken the skin and put it on a human skull and stretched it thin. It was not human. As Carl Sagan once said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and a mystery creature in South Carolina would certainly be extraordinary if it was true.
And not South Carolina.
I know. Yeah, I'll jump back to that very shortly. It would upend everything we know about biology, zoology, evolution, and North Carolina. So now he's corrected himself and on to North Carolina.
He can teleport.
I'm open to the possibility, but we need more than a 911 call to accept it. We'd need extraordinary evidence. Videos, photos, corroborating witnesses, and physical evidence wouldn't be enough. You'd have to catch one, and it would have to make enough sense to rewrite the entire zoology textbooks. And he goes on to say, don't lose hope, all you I want to believe people. It could still be real. Up until the mid-1800s, gorillas were basically Bigfoot, as far as Western science was concerned. A few people told tales of spotting them deep in the jungle, but there wasn't a compelling reason to think that they existed. Same with giant squids. Occasionally, a sailor would swear he encountered one, but it wasn't until the 1840s that there was any physical evidence. And we didn't have a photo of a giant squid until 2004. So yeah, a previously undiscovered creature would be, having a harder time hiding out in modern North Carolina than gorillas. But it's October, so I'm calling it a barely technically possible mystery instead of an outright lie. Personally, I'm going to disagree with Mr. Johnson on this, and also I'm just going to kind of write off his opinion, and very strong opinion, as some just lazy journalism, because he couldn't tell the difference between South Carolina and North Carolina.
I agree.
And then jumps back to it. So, yeah, I'm going to write that off. But jokes aside, I do genuinely believe that T truly experienced something unexplained that truly frightened him to his core. Be that a rake, a skinwalker, or some other non-human entity that we don't fully understand. Like I mentioned, faking that 911 call could have ended up with him having a felony charge.
No doubt.
So that's a pretty big risk to take if you're just trying to set up a hoax. And, also waiting for the law enforcement, wildlife and game officials to arrive. It just adds more credibility. Like, he's not sitting here placing some BS call and then just running from it. He's sitting there like, no, come meet me here and I'll take you to the spots. And it's not like he's doing this for media attention, because the story sat there mostly untold for 4 entire years.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that play into the credibility of this person. And, even if they were just somebody that was really trying to get a lot of attention in one way, shape, or form, just to feel some sense of importance, and they did call this in as a hoax, albeit a very convincing one.
Yeah.
That they subsequently wait for, officials to come and meet them somewhere after calling this in, and stands there and talks to them at length about this experience. Even if they didn't know that potentially could end up being a felony, it's just a very strange way to pull a hoax.
Yeah.
If you were going to.
And as we'll kind of get to later, it's not like he had a copy of this dispatch tape or anything.
Yeah.
He had no evidence other than the scratches on his truck and word of mouth.
If you were going to pull some stuff and didn't realize that they could trace your phone, you'd do something like that, and then you'd probably try to hang up and disappear.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just very strange.
But, I will admit that the kind of lapse in the timeline was a little bit confusing for me, just because this happened in 2021. And sure, you might hear a Facebook post about it and 4 years later, but, it took a good 4, almost 5 years for this to really come out in the public like it did through Carolina case files. So I was kind of confused just what took so long and how Rusty and the guys over at Carolina case files kind of discovered this or knew about the 911 call in the first place. But luckily enough, Rusty was actually nice enough to take my call and shed a little bit of light onto this timeline and how he initially kind of got involved and wrapped up with this strange case to begin with. So we'll play a little bit of that call for you now.
So I have a partner in crime in this endeavor. His name's Steve. I've known him for probably 8 years, since I moved down to the Wilmington area from the Raleigh area. I'm a native North Carolinian. And yeah, we got to know each other really well. We've got some common interests. In fact, we in the years past, we've collaborated on some short faith-based films. It's kind of a passion for both of us. And in fact, Steve's got he's got another YouTube channel up. I think it's realstories.com, REEL, realstories.com. I believe that's it. But some short faith-based films, that kind of thing. And then back earlier this year, we kind of got the idea of doing another channel. Honestly, Austin, with the initial thoughts of assisting law enforcement. And I'll just say
the vibe that I got from the branding on everything.
That's where we were going to go. And we, we're without divulging too much, we're kind of tapped into some of the law enforcement agencies here on the coast. And so, we were going to go the route of missing persons, unsolved crimes, unsolved murders, that's the kind of route we were going to go. And I'll never forget it. We started poking around and talking to some of the law enforcement agencies and the 911 dispatches and said, hey, we started combing through and looking for something that might be interesting. And I'll never forget it. I was in Steve's upstairs. He's got this media room. Where he does editing and all this stuff. And he's got these really nice speakers. It's about 8 o'clock at night. He says, I want you to listen to something. Now, this is back in, I want to say March of this year.
Okay.
And he plays this 911 call in its entirety. Of course, I didn't stop him. The hair on my arms, some people it's their neck. For me, it's the hairs on my arms. They just stood straight up. Yeah. And we both looked at each other. He said, I just want to get your opinion on it. I looked at him and I said, this has got to be our first episode. It has to be. It has to be. This has to be the story. So I first heard it back in, I want to say late March, might have been early April. And I think we launched the channel, I think in May, but we really didn't have anything to put up there. I think we put a little promo, a piece of the 911 call up there. But, and then the work, was kind of cut out for us there to run forward and run down these rabbit holes and try to put it all together and find the young man and then convince him to talk, which is the toughest part. But that's the timeline. And again, it was 4 years ago, but it was just buried in some 911 archives, in coastal North Carolina, Pender County, and no one thought the wiser of it. We had kind of heard. We've heard a lot of stories, so we had kind of heard offhand of this story, but until we got the 911 tape, we were like, yeah, whatever. And then when we heard the call, we were like, gosh, this is like getting, for the young man to see something on the side of the road. He's ex-military. He's a good young fella. He's going to do the right thing. He rolls up his window to call 911 to report it. Hey, somebody back there. And if he had not done that, there would never be a recording of him in dispatch later when something jumped in the back of his truck. So it was just a very unusual situation there.
Yeah, definitely. And I can understand how different views on people can be skeptical in some regards, but to have a 911 call on record, like you're not pulling a prank or risking any sort of a felony there if this is any sort of false intent. That's what credits to me.
Yeah, and we cut out the very tail end where he's sitting, I think it's called Malmo Loop Station or Country Store, whatever it is. When he's sitting there, I'm thinking he's sitting there. Well, he's talking on that, and we cut all that out because it's just a bunch of talking. But he's waiting. He's waiting on wildlife to show up. He's waiting on the sheriff's deputy to show up. He's waiting on the lead investigator, which is going to be the highway patrol. And then he's got a cart. And EMS came out to check him out, and make sure he was okay. So he's got all these agencies confirming on this little store, and then they're asking him to take them back to where it happened. So, he was out there until the wee hours of the morning. He didn't go through all that just to get a 911 call recorded, never thinking that anything was going to happen. He had never even heard it before. And I don't know that I've spoken about this, but after
4 years.
Yeah. And after he agreed, and he was so kind to come out and so gracious to give us the time to tell the story, he asked for one thing afterwards. He said, guys, when you guys put up that little promo several weeks back, he said, it's the first time I've heard the 911. Can I get a copy of the 911 call from you guys? He had never heard it.
Oh, wow.
Is that not crazy?
That is. That adds a whole other layer of credibility.
It does. I mean, obviously he didn't do this for any type of recognition, and he's not a media YouTube kind of technical guy at all. Yeah. So when he asked me that, I'm just looking at him like, you don't have a copy of it? He said, no. Until you guys put the little promo, a piece of it on your YouTube channel, I had never heard it before.
Wow.
I know.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. I really do appreciate that. And thank you for taking time to speak with me.
Man, Rusty Martin, Caleb Hanks here. Thank you so much for talking with us about this. That's so cool. Awesome, dude. Thank you for reaching out to him. I could kind of tell from the Carolina Case Files videos is like, man, that guy just seems nice.
Yeah, right. And I shot Rusty a quick email just trying to verify the timeline and be like, hey, how did this case kind of fall on your radar to begin with? And he's like, hey, I'm driving. Give me a call. And that just led to this.
That was my question, too. It's like, how does somebody just 4 years after the fact stumble into this?
Yeah.
A couple of things that I want to talk about in regards to that. Number one, obviously this guy is ex-military.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you've been through, some stuff, there are instances where people have some PTSD and they come back from, war zones and they definitely can experience some mental problems.
Yeah.
It does not seem to me from his interactions, and his interview on the Carolina Case Files that he is a seemingly troubled individual in that regard.
Talking about T, the witness.
T.
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously too, it's just like, you have to have a pretty decent mental aptitude to be able to be part of the military. And, I feel like somebody that could do that would be able to identify what they were looking at.
Right.
The other thing that was really interesting in the second video that the Carolina Case Files did, basically the follow-up video to their first one, was they take the audio from that call and they drive the route that he says he's on while making the call. It shows you beat for beat exactly where he says he is to the dispatcher.
Yeah.
That's exactly where he said he was while he's making this call.
Yeah, I think they had it synced up going 55, 60 miles an hour where he said he was driving.
They sync it up and they point out when he says, like, I'm just passing this road or this road. They show you where he's talking about.
Yeah.
So again, this is another piece of evidence that's showing, if nothing else, he was where he said he was.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously would have been because the dispatchers, it's recorded that that's where they met him. But still, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing.
It definitely is. Man, I think my biggest takeaway after talking to Rusty on this is like, oh yeah, this was just buried away in some sheriff's office for 4 years. How many other dispatch calls, maybe not quite this crazy, but of kind of similar content, do you think there are tucked away in sheriff's offices just across the country that until someone comes poking around, people might not know about?
Well, dude, the old UFO hotline.
Yeah.
Think about, and this was back in like the 60s and 70s. And they're kind of hard to hear, but I know for a fact my brother has a lot of them, and we've listened to a lot of them.
Yeah.
Now, there's a ton of people that have seen things in the sky that they couldn't identify. There's also a lot of people that have talked about and have written on the internet about just what we're talking about. Skinwalkers, Dogman, Sasquatch, Loch Ness Monster, you name it, they've seen it. They don't have a hotline for that, do they?
Yeah, I guess not. But I do think when you're putting this on a 911 call, you're almost, I want to say you're like under oath or anything like that, but you are risking a bit of falsification there if you are and truly coming into it from an intent of trying to set up a hoax.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would have to be legitimately just mentally unwell to think that would be a good way to get attention.
Yeah.
Because what's the motive otherwise? I don't really see one.
Yeah, exactly. Man, it's just got me wondering, like, how many other dispatch offices experience something like this, whether it's infrequently or not, just have some sort of record of something like this that just kind of gets tucked away and maybe chalked up to urban legend, local lore. But until you get an investigative journalist kind of coming out there and really doing a deep dive on it, the public kind of doesn't really have a clue on some of this stuff.
Yeah, well, if you or anyone has a weird clip of a dispatch call that you want to send in to us, please do. Or send it also to the Carolina Case Files people.
For sure. And definitely giving credit where credit's due. Go check out their channel. It seems like they're going to have pretty much an ongoing series on this. As Rusty explained in our call, they were kind of initially going more down the true crime route, helping to, look into some cold case files when this landed on their lap. And boy, it seems like they might have a knack for some paranormal investigative journalism there.
Yeah, maybe so. There's a lot of people that get into this world where they weren't necessarily expecting to find something paranormal, and then it ends up becoming a career path for them. So,
which I think just adds such another layer of credibility to stuff like that.
Oh, 100%, man. Well, yeah. Once again, thank you, Rusty Martin, for talking with us. And man, Thank you for your research on this, because I feel lucky that this happened in our state, because it makes it even more relevant for us to talk about. But it's also, I gotta say, it is one of the weirdest damn things I have heard in a really, really long time. And also one of the weirdest things I've heard that has probably the most evidence to back it up.
For sure. I think that's what makes it so strange for me, is it's not only a creepy call that kind of gives you the chills, it's got a pretty damn compelling backstory to it as well.
It really does. Well, Austin, unless you got something else, closing thoughts.
Man, I think it's been an awesome initial spooky season for us on the podcast here, and I really couldn't think of a better way to wrap it up than this one. Because truly, I think if you were sitting there, maybe driving at night, alone at your house, or even just listening to this episode in the dark, hearing that 911 call, it's going to creep you out a bit. And I think that's kind of our intention with some of these last few episodes. And just knowing where we kind of dive into after that, there's really no conclusion to be reached. There's nothing to debunk here. Just more open-ended questions, which just adds to the creepiness of it for me.
Well, I know for a fact that exact scenario you're talking about has happened, because Justin Biltonen, who we had here on the podcast, my good buddy, texted me, said he was driving through some of the darkest back roads he'd ever been on in somewhere in West Virginia while he was out there between shows. And he was listening to the Haunting of Hickson House episode of ours, and he just said, F that. But, man, I couldn't agree with you more. This has been a spectacular first spooky season for Ghosts in the Mountains. We started this podcast the beginning of the year, and we've been waiting all year for this. And as sad as it is for spooky season to come to a close, the party kind of doesn't stop for us, man.
Yeah. This just, it was a reason to dive into the even spookier spooky stuff. But, don't worry. If you've enjoyed what you've heard over the last month, we're not going to stray too far from the path next week and moving forward.
Absolutely. When I say at the end of every episode, stay spooky, well, we don't have a choice, damn it. So we hope that you guys will join us in that too. So as we lead you into the next phase of the equinox, towards the end of the year, going into the beauty and the majesty of the holidays, I just want to revel for a moment in the magic that is Halloween and the fall time and everything that makes this time of year awesome. Spooky ghost stories, hanging out with friends, autumnal beverages. Man, I can never get enough of it. And pretty much when it's done, I'm one of those people that sits around and waits for it to come around the next year.
Yeah, fall's the new summer. Everyone loves the fall now.
That's true. Yeah, I used to love summer a lot. Now
Exactly.
now I'm just hot and miserable all year.
Yeah. The older you get, the less you like humidity, I think.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much to all of our friends, families, listeners, and everybody. Big shout out to Micah Hanks, who has continually been helping us out with this stuff and helping us get on this crazy path. A big shout out to, again, Amanda over at Blazing Pines Pyrography for making the coolest piece of Ghosts in the Mountains artwork I've ever seen. And so far, the only piece of Ghosts in the Mountains artwork, but it's incredible. Please go to Blazing Pines Pyrography on Instagram and buy some Halloween-themed artwork, because she is a master at it. And until next week, when we keep the spookiness rolling, thanks again for listening to Ghosts in the Mountains, and we will catch you on the next one. Happy Halloween, and stay spooky, everybody. How many people do you think that were driving around listening to this story were like, well, I mean, dude, I always keep a rake in the back of my truck.
There's nothing scary about a rake.
It's literally always back there. And hey, it isn't human.
That is valid. A rake is not a human.
What if it was just a rake?
That should be the artwork.
Oh my God. Do not tempt me. All right. There's your keister egg. Good night, everybody.